We're looking at Eric Belanger, Ben Foster, and Gerald Olivetto. So we'll go over some questions about steel bridge fractures and actions to address those. And the first question we have is, what has been your agency's experiences with bridge fractures over the past 10 years?
All right, I got a bunch of things here. Maine has 1,371 steel bridges, and over the past 10 years, we've had about 10 fracture issues, places where we've had to go in and at least either address them or monitor them, which is what we do the most. What type of bridges were impacted? Most of them are girder bridges, but we do have one truss out there that has some floor beams, that's fracture critical member, that we put those rings in that we saw earlier to try to remediate that cracking. We have 295 welded structures, 221 riveted structures, and the rest of them must be rolled. Some special factors that lead to these cracks, bad steel details like we're talking about here in many of them, and we've got a bunch of morons like they do in New Hampshire that hit our beams. So,
hi, Eric Belanger from Connecticut DOT. So we have 1,898 steel bridges in our inventory, and we have not had any fracture events. However, we do have one structure that we just came across through a capital improvement project that was designed in the late 50s, early 60s, welds all over it, and come to find out that we performed weldability tests to perform repairs of cracks that are out there, and the weldability test came back that we can't weld on the structure. So kind of interesting that work that we've done in the past we can't do because of stuff we found out now. So.
All right, I have none of these stats because I got asked to be on the panel yesterday, but I will tell you that most of the bridges in New Jersey are steel. We have a few concrete, but most of them are steel. Couldn't tell you the number of fracture events we had, but most of our stuff, or actually all of our stuff, is handled by our regional forces. Federal Highway won't pay for steel repairs in New Jersey, so when one of these issues comes up, it gets delegated to our consultants to design, and then it gets pushed out to our regional forces to make the repairs. So like I said, I'm sorry I don't have any of these stats on how many we have or the incidents, but I could tell you that's how we fix them.
The next question is, how does your agency address potential fracture problems, not including, the cable, post-tension structures, or movable structures?
all right, our routine biennial inspections, we actually use a 21-month cycle, and the reason we do that is so we can get some seasonal variability. You're not looking at the same bridge in the same month with the same temperature. We identify fatigue-prone details in our fracture critical inspection plans, and in many cases we do reduce the inspection frequency in the cases where we might find some of these cracks. One method that we've used to kind of remediate it is we've used catcher mitts on our pin details, basically bolt on some beam underneath to catch it in case it fails, and that followed the pin failure in Connecticut. I don't know when it was. I was young.
Connecticut, routine biennial and annual inspections, basically on our 24-month cycle. Fracture critical and fatigue sensitive member inspections are performed with the biennial inspection. Programmatic approach to address potential problems, special targeted inspections, inspection types and frequencies are based on the condition of the bridge. Basically, any field repairs we try to do by welding, and it's inspected as part of the biennial inspection, and cracks are also inspected as part of the biennial inspection.
New Jersey really the same as Maine and Connecticut. Everything's addressed during the biannual inspections.
The next question is pretty quick, simple. Who performs your agency's inspections?
The majority of our inspections are performed by state forces. We don't have a special crew for our large bridges. We do have team leaders that pretty much do them all. We do use consultants. We've started using them more and more because we've gotten more and more bridges as the 10-foot culverts are now 20-something foot bridges, and we have to inspect more of them. And for our suspension bridges, We do use consultants because they're a specialty, and we only have a couple. We try to get a consultant's eyes on our deck and through trusses once every 3 or 4 inspections.
Again, in Connecticut, state forces, we have 8 in-house inspection teams. They do a lot of our smaller structures, culverts, pipes, etc. Consultants do pretty much all our large structures, especially anything on interstates, multi-spans, arches, trusses, etc.
So New Jersey has a whole structural evaluation department, but we mostly oversee consultants to do our inspections. We do a few here and there in-house, but for the most part, everything's consulted out.
Do you have any requirements for your inspectors?
Yes, they all need to be NHI trained, a 2-week course, and then they need to take the refresher every 5 years. We do require all of our team leaders to be fracture critical inspection trained. We do an in-house training annually, and that's not only for in-house, but the consultants as well. Do we have vision requirements? Yes, they need to be able to see. We hire out all of our climbing stuff, and that's about it.
Okay, the only difference in Connecticut, we don't need to be able to see, joking obviously, but we're the same as Maine for the most part there.
Yeah, same here.
Next question is, when does your agency use non-destructive evaluation?
The only time we really use non-destructive is every 5 or 6 years. We do an ultrasonic test on our pins to see if there's cracking in them. We do use a D meter, which measures thickness for section loss, but that's nothing special. If we do find a crack, we use a dye penetrant test, but that's about it.
In Connecticut, only when issues arise for the most part, except for under pin and hanger assemblies, those that have not been already retrofitted with secondary devices or just a removal of the pin and hanger completely. Do use dye penetrant on cracks, mag particle testing, and UT testing.
Ours really follows the same as Connecticut. Really only everything, use the non-destructive when needed or if new technology arises and we want to test it out. Rutgers usually approaches us a lot with new technologies and products if we want to test them. But for the most part, everything else follows Maine and Connecticut.
Just a little interesting question here. Does your agency use strain gauging to assess anything on structures?
No.
We have used strain gauge testing when we found issues like with a frozen bearing per se, especially on like our very large structures such as our Gold Star Bridge down on Route 95. Typically, it's administered by Yukon. We have a lot of folks help out there with that. That's the only time we use it if we do find some sort of other issue that would cause that.
And I believe we would only use it if an issue arose.
This question is, what departments in your agency determine the repairs or retrofits of existing cracks or details that are fracture prone?
Bridge Maintenance Division does most of them. We house our bridge inspection program in bridge maintenance because it's the first responder. They find the crack. Maintenance typically does the fix. If there are other things going on, like a deck replacement within a capital project, we may the bridge design section would do the fix as part of that project.
So for us, our bridge safety department would actually find the crack, send that off to our design department. They would determine how to repair it, and our bridge maintenance, most of the time, will take on the repair depending on the severity of it. We will do that within in-house forces and hired contractors. If it's too large of a repair for us, then it'll go out through like a emergency declaration where we can hire other, more qualified contractors to handle.
So for us, when the consultant finds the problem, it comes back to our in-house structural evaluation department, and then a work order gets issued, and then those go out to our regional forces, who then create a task order for our on-call design consultant to design the repair. Once they get that plan, if and where directed, on-call contractor gets to go out and make the repair. So it's all consultant design and contractor built.
Does your agency have repair retrofit policies or details when you find bridge cracks?
There's no official policy right now. We're basically see broke, fix it. We use the stop crack X, as quick as we can to get out there. And then if something bigger needs to happen, we would adjust from there. We don't typically do the fatigue analysis, but I think that's a good idea and might be something we look to do in the future. The timetable for repairs, if it's an emergency, we take care of it now. We had one that 3/4 of the flange was cracked through and halfway up the web, and that was an emergency. We took action that afternoon. If not, we get it into a work plan so the crews can schedule their work.
On Connecticut, basically based on the analysis, we do not have a repair retrofit policy. No, we do not have that. The cracks are identified, and based on the analysis of the crack, the priorities are determined how they are to be fixed, when they're to be fixed, how quickly.
Yeah, New Jersey, no set policy. Everything's handled case by case as they come up.
Are there any special types of retrofits like the swaging device that your agency uses to deal with existing cracks?
Yeah, we do use that Stop Crack X tool. We do that. We do grind in the case of accident damage where the flange, we might have a piece, either small crack or a piece peeled right off. We would grind it smooth so we'd hopefully prevent future, but that's it.
Yeah, we've used the Stop X tool, pretty much trying to use that much more now, depending on the type of crack, obviously the severity of it. We do grinding. We used to just do regular stop holes at a lot of the cracks, but we found that a lot of the cracks kept propagating through, going through the other side, so have to go out there over and over again. We have done some re-welding where possible in bottom flanges from impact damage.
I'd say Jersey, what we do the most is the drilling of the check holes with the crack tips. I've seen the re-welding. As for the others, I don't really have an answer right now.
What type of retrofits does your agency use to deal with problematic weld details where there's no crack but there's a concern, say?
Right now, Maine, we just monitor them. We don't go in there, and we don't have enough money to do it at this time. We get too many other problems.
Pretty much the same in Connecticut. We kind of monitor them depending on the areas. If they're a fracture critical area, maybe it gets a more frequent inspection cycle, or we do program it for future replacement.
Yeah, same as Connecticut, monitor more frequent inspections.
Well, folks, that's the last of my topics. If anybody has anything that they'd like to bring up or discuss.
Can you guys tell me who your inspection people report to? I know, Ben, you mentioned it's in maintenance, but then also, do you have engineers or technicians doing your inspections?
We got both. For a long time, it was just technicians. Basically, it was the land of misfit toys. If construction didn't want them, we'd pick them up as inspectors. But now we've started hiring some young ones out of school that are engineering trained. That way they can do some of the load ratings and some of that analysis when they see it. It's more of it to be developed in the future.
In Connecticut, we've had a lot of people from bridge maintenance years ago transfer over from the bridge maintenance side into the inspection field with not a lot of requirements needed. Now there's much more requirements, but our inspection staff are mostly technicians. They're overseen by engineers. And same thing with our consultants. Our consultant teams report directly to department engineers that review all the reports and develop work orders from their findings.
Where in the department do your inspection teams report up to? Is it on the maintenance side of the house or design?
Bridge safety is their own department. They have their own department in Connecticut, their own lead, and then they all fall under the engineering side of the Department of Transportation.
You really want me to answer? No. So the consultants answer to our structural evaluation department, who's led by engineers.
Thank you all for attending, and I think we ought to give a round of applause for
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.